Welcome back to Five Big Questions. I'm Angela Morabito with Campus Reform, and today author Kenny Xu is here to discuss his new book called An Inconvenient Minority: The Attack on Asian Americans and the Fight for Meritocracy. Kenny, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Angela. I appreciate it.
So in your book, you talk about what's going on both at Harvard University and other elite schools like it, as well as what's happening in American high schools, like Thomas Jefferson High School, one of the top schools in Virginia. What's happening?
Well, in Thomas Jefferson High School and other elite high schools, you have these gifted and talented programs, right? And every parent wants their kid to get into a gifted and talented program. Of course, every parent thinks their kid is gifted. Of course, unfortunately, that's not true. Only some kids are actually gifted. And only some kids would thrive in a program that challenges them. Kids who are not gifted, who get into gifted programs, will be unable to usually handle the curriculum or that kind of course workload. So what happened was Thomas Jefferson is the #1 school in the country for science and technology. And recently their admissions process has been merit-based and based on test scores and grades. And Asian Americans became about 70% of Thomas Jefferson's population. And they've come on really fast. So in 2000, Asian Americans were only 30%. Now they're 70%. And this has angered a lot of, I would say, elite progressive parents who are angry about the fact that these Asians are coming in and stealing their kids' opportunities. So they wanted to change the admissions process to be a lottery for admissions. Of course, they justify it in the name of racial diversity. They say, oh, we want to admit more Black kids and more Hispanic kids. But the reality is they passed this proposal. And a year later, the number of Black kids and Hispanic kids has gone up only slightly. It was always low, but it's gone up very slightly. And the number of white kids has gone up 50%. And the number of Asian kids has gone down by nearly half. And of course, this is an assault on admitting the most qualified kid, bar none, and it raises a lot of different questions about diversity and meritocracy in America today.
We've seen time and again at Campus Reform how the people who talk the most about equity then turn around and enact these profoundly unequal policies like what happened here. If you were able to sit down with the president of Harvard for a few minutes and talk to this person about what is happening with their admissions policies, what would you say?
I would say, why are you so insistent upon trying to make a class that is against meritocracy? Why are you so against the idea that Asians could potentially be 43% of your school if there was no discrimination, which Harvard's own institutional Office of Research found that if there was no discrimination against Asian Americans at Harvard University, it would be 43% of admissions. Instead, Asians are about 18% of the college. And so I would ask, why are you so intent upon cutting the number of Asians at your school? And this is the thing about Harvard, and this is the thing about elite, the elite college system and the elite high school system in the United States, is that in the name of diversity, they are discriminating against the most well-qualified applicants. And an Asian American has to score 440 points higher to have the same chance of admission to Harvard as a Black person on the SAT. And this is a sad and frightening reality because it reveals that if you continue to go down this road, and this is not just Harvard, this is not just the Ivy Leagues, this, as you can see, has gone down every system in America today. If you continue to go down this road and penalize the most excellent people, you're going to eliminate quickly the culture of excellence in America that is able to keep us competitive and running.
I'm glad you mentioned the culture of excellence because that stood out so strongly to me from your book. You talk about the culture of excellence that exists in China and that Chinese Americans have brought with them to this country. What should American schools be doing to build that culture of excellence here?
I think they need to start with understanding that there are a couple of timeless principles about how you can achieve better at school. And the number one principle is hard work. It's study. You cannot beat it. An Asian American study twice as many hours as the average American. And this is why they achieve. It's not because they're wealthy, because they're not. Most of them are not wealthy. Most of them just study really, really hard. And math, people are now making this absurd idea that you need to somehow pamper or lower standards for African Americans and Latinos in math because, they have a different culture or something like that. Well, that's ridiculous, and it actually discourages them from pursuing math when you say things like that. Instead, you need to help them understand that if you study really hard, you work really hard at math, you can achieve and you can do it, and you can do it well. It really comes down to get better at math. And this is scientifically proven. It just comes down to rote problems, problem set after problem set. And I know it sucks and I know it's not great, but guess what? That's how you achieve. That's how you get better. And you don't need any fancy, different kind of diverse instruction. You just need to study harder and study more.
These policies that you're talking about where the bar for admission is different depending on your race and sex, this runs right into critical race theory, which says that we have to discriminate now in order to rectify discrimination that happened in the past. What would you say to that?
I would say this is a childish philosophy because, here's the thing, has there been discrimination in the past? Absolutely. But guess what? If you discriminate now, the reverse way, the other direction, all you're doing is pampering the people that you want to live in a world where there is equal opportunity. But instead, you're saying to them, hey, I don't think you are good enough for this. So I need to give you unearned preferences to get you admitted into these colleges. If you instead set the bar at exactly the same bar that you set for every other people, and you say to people, hey, we're going to help you get to that bar, but we're not going to lower the bar for you. I think that is a much more compelling philosophy of excellence than it is to artificially lower the bar for somebody. And I really, really do believe that children can succeed if you keep the bar high and you really challenge them.
Lowering the bar is exactly what George W. Bush described as the soft bigotry of lowered expectations. We see this happening in elite universities around the country, and it looks like academia is getting nervous. I want to call your attention to a new study that came out from Georgetown University, which looked at 91 schools and said this anti-Asian discrimination isn't happening. But I've seen on your Twitter that there are some serious issues with that study. How did Georgetown get it wrong?
So people, the people on the left are trying to say that Harvard is not discriminating against Asians. And one thing that they use is this extremely dumb Georgetown study of where they say, oh, in the 91 most selective colleges and universities, Asians are doing fine. That's what they're saying. And we're not discriminating against Asians, but Asians were never alleging discrimination by the 91 most selective colleges and universities. They were alleging discrimination by the Ivy Leagues, by the top 10 universities. And that's what's happening. If you're an Asian American and you're unfairly rejected from Harvard or unfairly rejected from Princeton, even though you have the above average merit for it, yeah, you can, a second tier college will obviously be able to accept you. There's no question about that. And I'm not even saying it's wrong to go to a second tier college. I think it's great. I went to Davidson. I had a great time. But I am saying that to deny the existence of discrimination in the Ivy Leagues, all it does is make Asians blame themselves for not being able to get into these universities, which is so harmful to these kids. They already have to go through this ringer of competition culture. And then to tell them, no, it's actually your fault. It's not because of discrimination, even though the discrimination is obvious. It's so obviously true. You're just really harming them. So I would really ask these shoddy, politically motivated social scientists and everything like that to really reevaluate why they're doing this. when I talk to ordinary Asian kids about my book, An Inconvenient Minority, the main reaction that I get from them is relief. They're relieved that somebody is finally speaking up about this, because they've been infested. There's been, in the discourse has been infested with these denialists, with these people that are trying to justify Ivy League discrimination. People are saying Asians are worse personalities. Harvard says that Asians are the lowest personalities out of every race. They evaluate people on academics, extracurriculars, and personality, and Asians get the highest in academics, highest in extracurriculars. Harvard rates them lowest in personality. And so all of this comes together, and then Asians really, like I said, really feel like they are to blame for their failure to get into these universities. But the reality is that's not true. It is because of discrimination. And the fact that I pointed out gives a lot of people relief.
What this does to kids and families, as you mentioned, is just terrible, where these kids are out competing their peers and yet not able to get the benefit of all of their hard work. The book is called An Inconvenient Minority. Kenny Xu, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.